Sports in the Spirit, the only show at least that I know about where we take Catholic things, we take sports, we combine them into one, and it's pretty awesome. Of course, I am your host, Andy Shmura. I gotta say something here. There's something that's been on my mind lately, and I am gaining a greater and greater appreciation for one football position. You want to know what it is? Believe it or not, the position that I am gaining a greater appreciation for as time goes on is the kicker. Let me explain what I mean. So, think about what a kicker does in a game. Think about how much time they're actually on the field. Most of the time when a kicker enters the game, the clock isn't even moving. So when you add all the game time together that a kicker is there, it's probably less than a minute every single game they're on the field. And yet what they do have massive implications on every single outcome, no matter what. You look at the number one scorer in the history of football. It's actually a kicker. It's Adam Vinatieri. And you see what some of these other kickers do. You know, Justin Tucker is making 90% of his field goals, which is unprecedented, realistically. Matt Prater makes a 64-yarder, an NFL record. He did that in Denver, Mile High Stadium. The only place where you can really make a kick that long because the air is a lot thinner and the ball travels further. So you have some kickers who have done some pretty incredible things, and yet in so many cases, they're doing it without the clock even moving. They can score 5 points in a game in 0 seconds, technically. I think if you take what a kicker does and divide it by the number of seconds they're actually on the field, it's unlike any other position, and it's pretty incredible stuff. But there's one kicker in particular that I can think of who's done something that none of those guys has ever done, something that Justin Tucker can't do, something that Matt Prater can't do, something that Adam Vinatieri can't do. The guy I'm referring to is Cody Parkey. A lot of you know where I'm going with this. Parkey was good at one thing and one thing only. Nobody in the NFL is as good at Parkey as hitting the upright consecutive times. Let me explain. Cody Parkey, at this point in his career, has doinked a football off of the field goal post and gone out 15 times. That's really hard to do. Like, it's considerably easier to make a field goal than it is to doink it off the upright. And yet, Parkey's just doing it over and over and over again. He actually did that 4 times in a single game. I gotta think that's an NFL record. How do you kick the football at the upright 4 times in a game? Well, Parkey managed to do that, but later that year, it would become a big problem. You see, Parkey and the Chicago Bears would go off to the playoffs. And, they were pretty good that year. As Matt Nagy's first year as his head coach, it was going all right. They had a chance to win at least one playoff game, which at that point would have been the first time, I want to say in 7 years, for Chicago to have won a playoff game. It would have been a pretty big deal to the city, but it all came down to a 43-yard field goal. Last second, it was very simple. If Parkey made that kick, the Chicago Bears would have beaten these guys, the Philadelphia Eagles. They would have advanced to the next round of the playoffs. Of course, if Parkey missed that field goal, then the Eagles were going to win. You can guess what happens next. The kick sails to the left further and further until doink off the left upright, and it falls straight down and doinks again off the crossbar before bouncing out. It is known as the double doink. You can look it up. There's a Wikipedia page dedicated to this one play. And it was just the most unlikely thing that you can think of. It was partially blocked by the Eagles, to be fair, but what are the odds of the ball bouncing twice against the field goal post before going out? It's just something that you never see, and yet Parkey does it again. And that was unfortunately the end of his career in Chicago. He was released after that season. So it was rough, but I think the significant thing that we can all learn from is what he did after he missed that kick. If you look at the replay, Parkey, after he misses this kick, he looks up and he points to heaven. It looks like he's giving thanks to God. Now, that's strange when you think about it. We see football players do that kind of thing, but not usually after they missed the big kick that lost them the game. That doesn't normally go like that. But Parkey did, and I think we can learn from it. If you read St. Paul's letter to the Thessalonians, what he says is, give thanks under all circumstances. All circumstances, not some circumstances when things are going well. All the time, no matter what. You read the book of Job, And what it says is we accept good things from the Lord. Should we not also accept evil? You know, it's an interesting thought, but when you look back at some of the ancient Christians and the stuff that they did, these were the guys, a lot of them got martyred and persecuted because of their faith, especially in Rome before Rome became Christian itself. And, these guys are thankful during every second of it. They're thankful. Sometimes they're cheering when they're literally sentenced to death. Like, yeah, we get to suffer for the name of Christ. They find ways to be thankful and joyful even as they're dying. It's insane, but that's what we're called to do, and I think we're missing that nowadays because, our world is still going through a lot, okay? The pandemic is, it's not over. It's still very much alive. Politically in our country, things are not good. No matter what side of the spectrum you are, you're probably admitting things are not very good politically right now for our nation. All this stuff is happening. And it's easy to just sink into despair and go into darkness. Sometimes we want to be an ostrich and just, dig our head in the sand and pretend that it's not there. But that's not what we're called to do. We are still called to give thanks and praise even when things are hard. And there's nothing wrong with thanking God for the day, even if we expect it to be a bad one. I think we can learn from Cody Parkey. We give thanks when joy is under attack. We trust God no matter what, and we go to him even when things are difficult. We never turn our backs on him, no matter what. And you know what? For people who trust in God, good things happen in the end. Sometimes you have to see a situation through, but our God, he's the God of long-term future. Like he likes to see situations come completely to the end before making any judgments on things. The devil is the opposite. He's about short-term gratification. He'll look at circumstances before it's all over. And, we don't want to be like that. We have to see things all the way through sometimes to figure out where the grace is in the midst of all of that. Look at Cody Parkey. He might have missed that field goal. He might have been released from the Bears, but that's not how it ended with him. He ended up getting signed by the Cleveland Browns, and he took that team to the playoffs, and they even won a game. So, things worked out for those who trust in God, and that's what we got to do. We got to give thanks in all circumstances, praise God in all circumstances, trust God in all circumstances, and remain joyful in all circumstances. That's what we're called to do as Christians. That's what's going to bring us closer to our God. St. Thomas More in Appleton, Wisconsin. My name's Andy Shimura. We'll see you next time. See you around.